Hello and welcome back to the LFC transfer room for another live stream. Today, joined by three lovely gentlemen, Kev, Neil, Drew. Kev, I'll start with you. How are you doing today, mate?
All good, mate. All good. Shame about the weather today, but hopefully it gets better tomorrow. Got a barbecue planned with me mate. Bit of Glastonbury music going on. Happy days. So all good. How are you, mate? We all good?
Yeah, I'm good. It's family, partner's family's coming down tomorrow, so just sorting the house out. So the rain hasn't really stopped it. Somewhere where it's probably definitely not raining is where you are, Drew. How have you been, mate?
I'm doing good. It's about 80 degrees in Los Angeles, so no complaints. Curious about Kevin's barbecue. I didn't know they did barbecues over in England, but on the Liverpool front, I was saying before the stream started, I'm a little antsy about transfers, hoping we do something soon. But yeah, a lot going on and excited to talk about.
Yeah, and Neil, how you doing today on this gloomy British day?
Yeah, I'm all good, thanks. To be honest, where I am, which is a bit further down south, the weather's been really good. It's been hot and sunny. We haven't had any rain at all, so I'm surprised to hear that. It's probably a bit too hot, if anything. So I'd welcome a bit of rain at the moment.
Well, to be fair, it's still lovely and humid, which is always horrible when it's not even nice outside. It's just humid. So hey ho. But got a good little stream today. Some new links, some old links that have sped up. But again, guys, if you are new to the channel, please do leave a like on the video and also subscribe. It helps us out a bunch. But the first story of the day is for. We'll go on to the midfielders first because I feel like we've been talking about midfielders every single stream. So we'll just do a quick little recap. Obviously, if people didn't catch it yesterday, France played two Liverpool targets, Thuram and Kone. Kone, very impressive. Probably was man of the match for France. Don't know if anyone else catched it, but there's been other links today anyway. Delaney's linked us with Romeo Lavia, and also Thuram and Gravenberch are the main targets, with Kone being a backup option, which I'm sure some of the lads won't probably agree with, considering yesterday's performance. But Kev, we'll start with you. It seems like Liverpool have they're kind of stuck on Kev. You know what? I've just started the stream and I could hear myself and I got really confused because I thought someone was talking. Okay, what was that? Jesus, man, my head's gone too hot here. There's four names that have been banded around a lot. Khephren, Thuram, who seems like the main target. Yeah. Kone, Gravenberch as well, who seems like another main target, and Romeo Lavia with Gabri Vega, but I think that's probably a different profile, a completely different player.
Yeah.
Are you happy with them four names? It's obviously not a Jude Bellingham. It's not, the world-class player, but it is four very young, up-and-coming potential midfielders who have a lot of potential to, hit the scene and do what Klopp does with a lot of players and makes them better.
Absolutely. And a variety of players that are of different stature, but all hit the same kind of profile, all a bit versatile and young and under the age of 24, which is something I think we're identifying as something that we need in that midfield. And it seems as though we can't get deals done because the under 21s is getting played, but Tonali of Italy is allowed to talk to Newcastle and get his deal done. So I don't know what the situation with there is. I don't know. It's getting a bit infuriating. We're in the same names, and it's not even getting close in my eyes. I think it's getting to the position now where they're unsure as to which two or which one do we actually I really want to bring in. It's getting a bit confusing. I think I wouldn't be surprised if we only get one of them, if I'm being perfectly honest, and we move Trent into midfield. And that's where you get three in midfield. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. I am not getting frustrated with it, but it is getting to the point where you're getting bogged down talking about the same things over and over again, and there's no kind of movement. There's nothing new. There's nothing to get excited about. After McAllister, I thought we'd initially get at least one of them done prior to the under-21s kicking off, but somehow we haven't been able to get that deal over the line. It seems as though we're dawdling because of the price, and we're trying to get it as cheap as possible. And that's the view I'm getting. But it's the same old. Do you know what I mean? I reckon we'll be here in 2 weeks' time and we're still talking about it. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know what the answer is. I would like to say I'd like to see 2 of them brought in, but again, Kone's a bit further down than where I'm expecting him to be. I thought it would be him and Thuram, and I think a lot of us would have been happy with that. But we're getting, Gravenberch has come back into it. It's a conundrum, and they're all on the list, but who's the most priority? For me, it has to be Thuram. Thuram has to be next in. He is the person that I identify as the physicality in that midfield, the progressive player who can bring the ball out. That's what I want next, but I don't think the club's doing that. I think it's trying to do it as cheap as possible and less money spent. It's as though we're checking the wallet every 2 minutes to make sure that there's enough money in there when we go and speak to them, but I don't know. Hopefully something will happen.
Yeah. Hello to everyone joining. Jen, thank you so much for a super sticker. Footy Boy, big up to everybody joining. Make sure you do leave a like. But Drew, Kev's kind of hinted there, something that a lot of Liverpool fans feel. Why are we waiting until after the under-21 Euros? Seems like a bit of an unnecessary risk. There's always a few potentials. One, major injury could happen, so maybe do you wait a little bit? But then the counter side is, if they have a great Euros, that's probably going to add 10 million or so onto the price tag, which, for most clubs, not a massive deal. For Liverpool, huge deal. I probably think Liverpool would turn it down if its price went up another 10, 15 million. Do you think, especially with Khephren Thuram, do you think maybe Nice are kind of holding out for him to have a great Euros, kind of saying, look, we're not accepting bids, come back after the under-21s and we'll see where we are then? I think that's what's happening. I don't think Liverpool will be stupid enough to wait. I think if they could, they'd snap him up. But what are your thoughts on that, mainly for Thuram? I know obviously Kone, according to reports, is a bit further down the list.
Yeah, I'm in similar thoughts as you. I think Nice only benefit from holding out at this point, especially if other clubs become interested. If he performs well in the tournament, then you can, get up a bidding war potentially, or other clubs interested, kind of thing, like making more competition for the signature. And that's not something we need. I know Klopp's big on getting players in before the preseason starts so he can get them like fully integrated in the squad, or at least up to speed for how we're approaching the season. I think the later you leave it in the transfer window, the more it becomes the chance of the players not going to be able to bet in right away. And we need midfielders, or at least one more. I know McAllister fills in one of those spots, but with the players leaving combined with the unreliability around injuries in our squad in the midfield, and we need the players as soon as possible, and we need them to have a full preseason. So it's getting me a little anxious about getting these over the line. I think that we're usually used to Liverpool doing the business early in the transfer window, and then we know what we have going in. But it seems like, maybe Ked said it's like a bit of indecision over who we're buying, seeing who we can get for the best price. Trent moving into midfield, I hope they're really not using that as an excuse for thinking of how many we need to get. I think definitely one more, at least 2 would be ideal. But I think Kone's performance yesterday definitely, piqued a lot of eyebrows and maybe pushed him up further up the list in a lot of fans' opinions. But I think I agree with Kevin that Thuram is definitely the player we need to get in first. He's exactly what we need in the midfield, and I hope we're just not nickeling and diming it. I hope we can get him in as soon as possible. Full stop there.
I mean, Neil, you know, the names that I mentioned before, I said before as well that Thuram seems like the number one option with Gravenberch. Obviously, Bayern Munich kind of don't want to sell him, but he's had interviews with Netherlands when he's been on international duty, saying that he's basically open to moving. If reports are be to believed, he's open to a move to Liverpool to play under Jurgen Klopp. It does seem like them two are the main options, with obviously Kone and Lavia. Do you agree with the club? Do you think Thuram and Gravenberch are probably the first options that you'd want to bring in, or would maybe Lavia's obviously looks like he's heading to Arsenal anyway. He's probably going to be 50 million, which is maybe out of Liverpool's price range too. So it's a strange one, but at least we've got our targets and we've got our list of backups, which I guess is good.
Yeah, so I think Thuram is my number one, as I think he is for many other people as well. I'm thinking it would be him or Gravenberch, although the strongest links do seem to appear to be to those two. But I don't know whether if I was going for Thuram, whether I would also go for Gravenberch. I like Kone. I like his energy. I like his physicality. I think it's something that we badly missed in midfield last season, and anyone with that kind of dynamism, I think, would be a welcome addition to what we watched last season. Lavia is an interesting one because I think he would play in a deeper role, more like the 6 role. I think probably got some concerns about Fabinho because he had, by his standards, a very poor season. He did improve when we got more legs around him in midfield, but am I 100% confident he would be back to his old self at the start of next season with the right players alongside him? I'm not sure. Lavia would, in some respects, ease those fears, but as you say, he's quite expensive. And I think David Lynch made quite a good point that when Liverpool were a stable club and all they were doing were looking to top up their squad every season, Lavia would probably be the type of player that they would target, someone that's young, someone's got significant upside in their transfer value. But he still represents a bit of a gamble at the moment because he's still a young player. So the point Lynch was making was Liverpool aren't in that situation at the moment. I agree with him. We need people that are going to come in, be guaranteed to kind of hit the ground running. So I think out of the 4, he's the least likely. And I suspect if we're lucky, we'll get 2 of the other 3, or 1 of the other 3, and maybe Gabri Vega as well, because we seem to be pushing for him. I read an article, I think it was in a French publication yesterday, to say that we've made him an offer, I think, of 5 million euros per season. And it looks really positive. Liverpool were really pushing, and at the bottom of it, it said they didn't want to pay the release clause, which is 40 million euros. So there seems to be interest there. Again, as you said, I think right at the start, he would offer a different option. So I think if we're lucky, we'll get 2 of those 5 players probably.
Yeah, I do. Ali McCoist, as Nathman said there. Gary's mentioned this. Kev, Liverpool should pounce on the Barella deal, but then straight after has said Kone and Thuram 80 mil for both. Barella's going to cost 80 mil alone. Yes, he's probably a world-class midfielder, and we know Jay would love him at the club. But would you rather 2 young players who could potentially become world-class, or do you, go out and sign the ready-made deal? I think at the moment, my thought of it is, I think we need players in midfield. I think that's the main thing we need to do. I was always under the impression that 3 midfielder was needed, and I think if we signed Barella, it will be a risk in its own because you're relying just on him. Whereas with Kone and Thuram, one of them could have a bit of a quiet season, and the other one could have a great season. So, Gary said he'd get all 3, if only, But I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Barella especially.
I'll be honest. anyone other than Bellingham, everyone in the fan base will be fractured over, because they'll be going, well, why didn't we spend the extra and additional to bring Bellingham in? Why are we? And then there'll be a comparison to Bellingham and how well he does at Real Madrid, and going, well, we could have had him. Look at this. No one's going to be happy. And I totally agree with yourself. We have lost bodies in that midfield. We need quality. We need quantity in there. And we're not in a position to be able to go out and buy one player of Barella's style, because we need the quality in there. We need quantity in there, and coming players looks to be the way and the model that we're looking at, who are also versatile in how they play. We are very unlucky with Italians who come to our, a lot of us still remember Aquilani coming under Benitez, and how well of an Italian he was before, and then, didn't reach the heights that he should have done, or potentially wise. So that kind of has knocked me for six when it comes to mentioning Italian players over the years. Barella is a quality player, but let's not get carried away. We're not going to pay that kind of money for him, unfortunately, and sadly. I would love him to be playing for us, but I just can't see it. We need quantity in there. We've lacked that kind of vision. I've said it before. Had we brought in the right individuals over the last 2 years, then we could have been picking and choosing from a Barella, Bellingham, or whoever else, going out and chancing our arm with Madrid for Valverde or Tchouaméni. That's the frustrating part for me, is that 2 years lost in buying players that are not, who haven't got the legs, who are not Klopp kind of players, and bringing in players because we may have the potential or change us in a way doesn't actually fit well with me. We've missed out, and we're now sitting in languishing now, and we need to be buying quantity of players. So sadly for me, I want to see 3 in there, but I think the only 3 that we'll get in there will be another Thuram, and I would say Trent will be classed as the 3rd, and then we go for a right back. I think that's what FSG wants, and that's why I think it's taken our time. And it's only my opinion. That's why I think out of the 5, that's why we're constantly seeing them in the press, and as the club don't understand which ones they want to bring in. But that's my own personal opinion. But quantity for me.
Yeah, I mean, true. We, sticking on Barella, it seems like we've got a bit of a free run at him now. Newcastle with the other side, linked with interest. Apparently made a £50 million bid. They've got Tonali, which we'll come on to a little bit later. But it does. I feel like no one's ever really interested in Barella apart from us and Newcastle. And maybe that's an Italian thing that Kev mentioned, but it's Inter don't need to sell anymore. He seems quite happy at Inter. Big risk money wise for us. I mean, I don't know if you agree with Kev and me, but it just doesn't seem like a transfer that we really need at the moment, does it?
No, I think we were talking about the other day with after buying McAllister, it doesn't seem like, Barella, we need Barella in that capacity when we're crying out for a player like Thuram. That being said, I think I saw Man United with the rumor to be in for him as well, so I wouldn't want him going there, but I don't think we do a Chelsea and just buy him just because we don't want United to get him. I'm wondering too what's going to happen with any more outgoings. Like I don't know how much we'd get for Phillips. I know Carvalho. We'll talk about that, but I'm curious to see if there's any more transfers out the door that could potentially give Klopp some extra money to work with. I don't, it's probably nowhere near enough to make a bid for Barella. Love him as a player. Would love to see him in the team, but yeah, it's definitely a case of he shouldn't be our priority number 1 for next incoming transfer.
Yeah, I mean, finally on the whole midfield situation, Neil, it's Barella. We'll stick on Barella a little bit, and I'll ask you. I know you wrote an article on the one and only Sander Berg, who we seem to be linked with every summer, even though he's the Championship player at best. But, you know, I feel like once Bellingham joined Real Madrid, that was kind of the end for a big marquee signing in midfield, right?
Yeah, it did feel that way. And if I'm looking at Barella and we're going to spend big money, I'd probably rather it was invested in a Tchouaméni or a Valverde. Now, I'm not sure that Valverde will be available. Tchouaméni, maybe. I think a lot might depend on what happens with the Mbappe situation. But yeah, it doesn't feel like we're going to go out and spend 60, 70 million pounds on a player, you know, of that kind of class. I think, as Kev said, it will be quantity that we need more than anything, and we seem to be in that, you know, 30, 40 million pound range, and we'll probably stick to that, I would think.
Yeah, definitely. Again, guys, if you're new to the stream, make sure you do leave a like to the video. It helps us out a bunch. Also, get your comments in. Join Jen and Gary and Ant and everyone else in the chat. Also, subscribe to the channel if you're not. We're on the grind this summer, so it's going to be a good one. But next, Drew, being talked about a lot. Liverpool's interest in a centre back. It has been confirmed by David Lynch that we are 100% going to sign a centre back this summer. A couple of names have been linked with Inacio from Sporting Lisbon. Mickey van der Ven is probably the most out there name at the moment. Another player we have also been linked with is Benjamin Pavard from Bayern Munich. Obviously, right back, can play centre back. Kind of seems like a lot of the players that we are aiming for at the moment can play in a back three. Maybe that's, you know, hinting at a system change, so I'm sure we'll discuss later. But Pavard is apparently open to joining Liverpool if it was offered there. He's runs out of contract next year. He's got 1 year left on his deal. 27 years old, so hitting his peak. I have done an interview with somebody, a bit of a hint for a video next week. Done an expert analysis with someone who said that Bayern would probably take 30 million euros from him. What are your thoughts on the deal? We, in our chat, a lot of people against Pavard. I'm probably one of his only, you know, get him in people. But I mean, what are your thoughts? Do you think it'd be a good addition?
Yeah, I'm a fan of Pavard. I think he's done bits for France, Bayern. You know, he's a quality player. The cover at right back and possibility of him playing center back too, I think, is crucial. I think we're always, especially after we got Calvin Ramsey sent out on loan, kind of questioning who comes in to fill in for Trent if, God forbid, he gets injured. Yeah, Milner could have done a job once upon a time, but no longer. I don't think Henderson's the type of player that can fill in. And then, said before, with center backs, we don't have, you know, the most reliable fitness wise center backs throughout the season. Konate, Matip, and Gomez are all picking up injuries every season. So Van Dijk too. I hope he finds his form or top form again. But it'd benefit us to get a player or a center back in who could have experience and we know could do a job. I don't know if that's the type of player we're going to bring in, but it's definitely a position we need some cover for. Versatility is key, and yeah, it's I wouldn't be opposed to bringing in Pavard, but I think Jay threw it out on the other day like that Bastoni would be like the absolute perfect signing for us, and we'll see. I don't think that's likely, but it's a position that I'm glad we're reinforcing because I think it's one that we recognized a few years ago with the injury crisis that things can go south pretty quickly if a couple of them are injured. And I definitely don't want us to be caught in that situation where we're watching another season where we're just seeing our performances hampered by trying to make shift in a squad to fill in for injured positions.
Yeah, I mean, Kev, you know, I mentioned before, we've been linked with a lot of centre-backs who can play right back or left back. Obviously, Joe Gomez, Joel Matip are being rumoured to being kept on. Maybe, you know, they're like, okay, we need an actual centre-back who doesn't die every few months. Benjamin Pavard, he's always played under every manager he's been under. Always reliable, play centre back. As I mentioned before, a lot more comfortable as a right-sided centre back in a back three. Mickey van der Ven is another one we've been linked with. Jurien Timber we were linked with as well, can play right back and in a back three or right centre back. It kind of makes me think that we are going to potentially be going to a back three potentially, and what that means for Robertson, who knows? But it is interesting that we're getting linked with players who can play full back, back three, and a centre back, isn't it?
Absolutely. And it's the reason why I think there may be a formation change with Trent moving into the middle of the park. With us being linked with so many right backs, it's kind of worrying for me. I think for me the biggest thing for us is that I'd like us to see us get a left-footed centre back. I think if we are looking to bring someone in, yeah, they have to be versatile, but I want them to be left-footed. We need some kind of cover for Van Dijk. I think we brought him back a lot sooner than he needed to be. I think we relied. It was a requirement that we had him back into the team, and I don't think I think even by his own measure, he didn't have his best season at all. I think he struggled at times last season for me. And I think we need to give him a bit of a respite. And we need a quality left-footed centre-back. Who that is, I do not know. Bastoni, I know you're his biggest fan, Charlie. And I am as well. I've watched a bit of the last end of the Inter Milan Serie A season, and I also, behind the covers of the couch, looked at the Inter Milan game until they got beat by City up until the goal. I thought he was quality. Can play a number of positions on that left hand side. Looked more like a left back wing back in parts of the game as well. He can do a job. That's the kind of person I want. Pavard is quality, but the problem I've got with the Pavard situation is he's not going to be coming to sit on the bench behind Trent. So therefore, then he is going to be down as a starter, and that's the reason why I think there is going to be a formation change, as you say, and we may go to three at the back, or we'll have Pavard playing on the right, and we play with two number sixes in the middle of the park and free up that way. But happy for others to divulge if they agree with me or not. But Pavard, it's an interesting one for me. It's more interesting because if we do get him, I think it is definitely going to mean that Trent plays in the middle of the park for me next season, and that's one of the three midfielders that FSG would say, sadly.
I mean, Neil, it's, the formation change that Kev mentioned, it's kind of mainly down to the targets we've been linked with. One of them being Mickey van der Ven from Wolfsburg. Very fast, very physical, maybe a bit young, probably could. I think what I get what Kev's saying, if you bring Pavard in, you've kind of got to go to that system straight away and stick to it and hope it works. Whereas if you bring in a Mickey van der Ven, you can still play your four at your back. You can sit him on the bench, maybe bring him on, change the complete system. But it feels like a risk-free deal for Pavard. I mean, he's 27. He's coming into his peak. He can get at least a good 5-6 years out of him still at a decent level. Can play right back, can play centre back, 30 million euros. So again, like 25 mil, he's always around the French national team. He's got players who he knows in the squad as well. Konate, obviously, with the French national team. People might not be a fan of him because he's not a big flashy sign and he's not an exciting youth talent, but not every signing can be like that. I think sometimes you've just got to be sensible. Go, okay, he's always available. He can play multiple positions. He's a top professional. I mean, that's my thoughts on him. But, would you accept Pavard coming to Anfield this summer?
Yes, I think you've only got to look at the clubs. He's been at massive club. He's won things. He's won things at for his club. He's won things for his country. So his pedigree is good. I think he's not a spectacular player. He's a steady player, does a good job at right back, or he can play that right central back role. I don't have any problem with us looking at him. I do agree with Kev that I think the priority needs to be a left-footed central defender, because we haven't got one and we haven't had one for a long time. So if we were to get a Mickey van der Ven or a Gonzalo Inacio, unlikely, I would think. Van der Ven probably more likely. And we sign Pavard with a view to moving Trent forward, then I'd have no problems at all, because you're buying proven quality. He's just not a spectacular player, which everyone's going to go and rave about. But he's got great experience, and he would be a really good addition to the squad. And again, he can play in a couple of positions.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm Bastoni's biggest cheerleader, so I would love nothing more than Bastoni. I think if we were to sign him, it'd probably be next year when we're looking for a potential Virgil replacement long term. And also, too, he's probably going to cost like 80 million euros, which is a bit out of our budget at the moment. So, hey ho, I'll be back on the Bastoni bus when that time comes. Don't worry. But going on to the next topic, before we do that though, make sure you do leave a like on the video and also subscribe to the channel. Another Italian, going back off Barella, Federico Chiesa. Liverpool are apparently leading the race for him. Juventus won 50 million euros. Liverpool are apparently preparing an offer for 35 million, 50 to 60, he said. But Liverpool are preparing a 35 million pound offer. Drew, Liverpool were heavily interested with him before he joined Juventus from Fiorentina, if I remember, or one of the purple clubs in Italy. Liverpool, one of the main teams there. That interest doesn't go away overnight. Liverpool have obviously been monitoring him. It's apparently a bit of a civil war at Juventus at the moment with Allegri. Them two don't get on with each other. Apparently, he wants Conte back at Juventus. A bit of a crazy one. But for 35 million euros, a Euros winner with Italy, one of Juventus's best players when he is playing. Obviously, the injury is a bit of a concern. But for someone who went for over 100 million, you can't stiff your nose up at that, can you?
No, I was a really big fan of Chiesa when we were first linked with them. The price tag back then was astronomical, and I think really that Euro was when he burst, use that quote, burst onto the scene for most people, but he absolutely did the job for them. He looked frightening on the wings, like attacking, direct, creative, good with the ball at his feet, and not afraid of a shot. I think that for me, particularly, looked very like a hungry player, very aggressive, very confident, and that's the kind of player I'd like to see in the front line. It kind of reminds me of like when Luis Diaz has taken the game, against Tottenham and Crystal Palace and did it himself. I think Chiesa is similar, where he can get the ball and he'll make things happen. The price tag now makes it very attractive, but I think it goes back to we're pretty good in attacking options at the moment, and sorry. I think the midfield needs to get sorted out first. Like, that's an absolute must. It can't be something that we sort of put on the back burner while we get these other deals over the line. The midfield needs the most attention. It's the position we've been talking about for a couple of years now that needs to be addressed. And if we keep putting that off for other options that are, could potentially be amazing, but not in the positions that we're suffering in the most, then that's kind of criminal business. You need to fix those positions, that midfield position, and get that sorted first. And then you can look at what's left over.
Yeah, I mean, Neil, it's a bit of a tricky one because, even though Salah is such a great player, we've seen signs of a decline. Even though he is still a world-class player, he's not at the height he was at Liverpool. Maybe, that's more to a different role that he's been playing. Maybe it's just due to, him getting older. But he's not getting any younger. Saying that, though, we do have a bit of a star of our own, Ben Dower. I'm kind of hoping he breaks into the first team this year to see if we do need to sign long-term Salah replacement, or if we've got one at home. But when that price tag of 35 to 40 million comes up, it's going to be hard to turn down. But you look at the other teams who are interested: Newcastle, Aston Villa. He's going to get starting time there. But again, with the whole Italian thing, we know Italians like to stay in Italy. It's a bit of it's a tough league to adapt to, going from the Serie A to Premier League. But if the deal's there, I'd take it. I'm not sure about you. What your thoughts on that are?
I think he's a fantastic player, and looking back 2 years, how he was around the time of the Euros, to think that I'd have been desperate to get him in. For me, it comes down to two things. One is, if we pay that money for him, does it mean that we don't get something that we really need, which is probably 2 midfielders and 2 defenders, if Trent's going to move into midfield, or 3 midfielders and 1 defender. Absolute priority is that. And 2, if we do think we've got someone like Ben Doak coming through, or even Kader Gordon, who I think is on his way back, we don't want to block the pathway of players that have got that type of potential. So it's a difficult balancing act. If money's not an issue, and we're not going to block the pathway of the likes of Doak, I think Harvey Elliott may deputise for Salah. I think he might be the first choice deputy if we don't sign someone to come in. But if money was no issue and we can still get the midfield and defensive reinforcements, then he would be a quality addition. It doesn't feel like something we're going to do, to me.
Yeah, I mean, Kev, as Neil's mentioned there, seems like there's other priorities this summer. Maybe if it had come next year, we'd be all over it. But I think, the 3 midfielders we need, potentially a right back, 100% a centre back. Maybe if we were Man City and we had unlimited money, but we've got to be a bit realistic here, don't we? And it doesn't seem like it's going to be a Liverpool window. But saying that, is the opportunity too good to turn down? So it's a weird one, isn't it?
It's interesting. It's something I can see us doing, because we always neglect the middle of the park. And we have done over the last 2 seasons, and we prioritise other areas. We brought Gakpo in January for cover. The amount of cover we got up front is ridiculous. Do you know what I mean? It's insane, and we haven't got nothing for Salah. But all 3, all the variety of players can play in that right side where Salah plays. My struggle with Barella is the price is for Chiesa. Sorry. It's enticing to get, but bear in mind, it's been a struggle since his cruciate ligament went. And if we're being perfectly honest, he only started 6 as starting in the starting 11 in Serie A games last season. He's been injured for 17 of those games, and he's been substituted on in 15 of them. So my concern is, we'll be bringing in a Keita replacement for the right hand side where Salah is. There's no doubt, there's no question. I agree with the lads. He is undoubtedly a quality player. My concern is, how much is that injury taken out of him, and will he get back to anywhere near the level he was prior to that coming on? I think there may be a better option, a younger option in Turkey, who seems to be a little bit. You spend 17 million, you bring someone in like that, than 35 of a person who's had a bad injury and is struggling to get back to where he is. That's my only concern with Chiesa. I'd loved him. I was saying to Jay the other week, I'd love, prior to his injury, I was all over him coming to Liverpool, and I think he'd be a quality person to be second fiddle to Salah. It'd be unreal, but I question the injuries. It's the first thing I look for now. How many games are we going to lose from these type of players? Salah's never injured, and even though he's dipping in form, he still had over 30 goal involvements for last season, which is incredible when you look how bad we were for the majority of that season. So for me, Chiesa, if there's a cheaper option, I'd bring him, but it's the injuries for me that concern me, sadly.
Yeah, no, completely understood. Don't want to replace Keita in the medical room, so keep them nice and not busy. Hopefully next season. But again, Helio, thanks for joining us. Again, guys, if you are just joining, make sure you do leave a like on the stream. It helps us out a ton. Also, subscribe with them bell notifications on. Okay, last topic. Big one. Fabio Carvalho talks earlier in the window that Liverpool rejected a £10 million bid from RB Leipzig. Liverpool adamant they don't want to sell him, especially for 10 million, considering they only just bought him. Now looks like a loan deal has been struck up. No option to buy a year at RB Leipzig, and also potentially a second year if everyone agrees to it. Neil, felt like it was coming, didn't it? It's been a bit off with Fabio Carvalho since post World Cup. Who knows if that was to do with the whole Portugal under-21 situation. There's been reports that his attitude's fine in training, still good with Klopp. So maybe it's just Klopp can't see him in his team, but it's a good move for everyone. I think Liverpool will probably get a loan fee. They'll get a player developed who's probably going to get a lot of game time, and Leipzig will most likely play him because they will be hopeful that they can sign him at the end of this. So it seems like a win-win deal for everyone, doesn't it?
It does. I'm as surprised as you are as to what actually happened, because he started really well. He scored against Bournemouth, then he got the winner against Newcastle, and then I think he started him in midfield in the derby. And then, as you say, after the World Cup, he didn't get a look in. He weren't even making the squad. So something strange went on. I think part of the problem is I'm not sure what his position is. And I think he probably a number 10, and that possibly didn't fit for us last season. So I didn't want to lose him because I think he's a player that's got a lot of potential, and I think you're right that going to the Bundesliga and Leipzig, who will be in the Champions League, is a good move for them. And I think you've only got to look at the players that have gone to Germany in the Bundesliga. Obviously, Bellingham's the main one, but I think Arsenal, Emil Smith-Rowe did quite well in Germany. Obviously, Jadon Sancho did very well. Reece Nelson, I think, was there, did okay. So I think it's a good. He'll get regular football, and I think it'll only benefit him. And Liverpool might benefit, and he'll come back a player that can force it. It feels to me that he's got the potential to be a starter for Liverpool, but I just can't see where at the moment. Maybe his time in Germany will help solve that problem.
Yeah, I mean, Drew, it would be silly to sell him, wouldn't it? Even though he's not getting into the Liverpool team, the potential is there. He was great for us before the World Cup, got some, crucial points, against Newcastle, and so on. For 10 million as well, you're definitely not going to sell him. I was always under the impression is you loan him unless you get like 20 plus million for him. 10 million is a bit of a mad offer from Leipzig, but it's loaning him definitely is the right decision, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Like, we really wanted him. Like, we didn't get him at the end of that transfer window, couldn't get it over the line. The time difference between Championship and Premier League kind of thing. And then we went back in for him. Seemed like an exciting player in the first half of the season, and then just disappeared second half. Felt bad for him. It was kind of, especially with how Fulham did and how he could have played a role in that side in their first season. in the Premier League, back in the Premier League. Just seems like a kind of waste in those development years to have a talented young player and to not see him playing. So I think for both parties, especially long term, if he has a future with Liverpool, get him out to a quality side that will be playing good teams in Europe. So he'll get quality experience, good development time, and then see how that can shape into the squad in the next couple of years. Salah's aging. We'll see what we do with the midfield, but we certainly could use a young, talented player there. So I think it's most important that he gets game time at a good club. And RB Leipzig's got a good player, and we've sent him to a good club to develop. So agree. Good signing for all parties.
I mean, Kev, would you have liked to seen him potentially in the Premier League? There was talks about him going back to Fulham. Obviously, Germany is a great league, as Neil mentioned. A lot of success has been happening there with I think his nationality's in limbo at the moment, but let's just call him English because he grew up here. With English players, Jude, Sancho, so on. It's just I feel like I would have liked to see him in the Premier League to see if he could have a full season under his belt. You probably could have sent him to Fulham where he's going to start. Even Burnley might be in a good place with Vincent Kompany, with building his new side, young players, a decent brand of football. I think there's a lot of Premier League clubs that would have taken him. Maybe RB Leipzig might be a bit too big of a step up. Dani Olmo's just signed a new contract there. So he's going to have to, fight decent players. But again, Nkunku's left. Maybe he's Nkunku replacement. Be interesting, but personally, I think I would like to see him at a Premier League club. But what about you, Kev?
I would have liked them to gone to Brighton. I think their model is similar to ours a few years ago. They've got that kind of pressing football, playing a similar style to what we have. I would have mirrored them and gone there. I'm getting the feeling with Carvalho going to Leipzig, and I agree with the lads. I totally agree. It's good for everyone. I think this is more getting them out of the bubble of the Premier League and getting them into a club outside of the Premier League and getting them into a club that will mature them and make them grow up a little bit, without the eyes staring on you all the time. The Bundesliga is still a fantastic league. He's going to a fantastic club. I think he'll develop a lot at Leipzig. I think with the opportunity of playing Champions League football, unbelievable opportunity. And if it goes well, we come back and we have a player on our hands. If it doesn't, then he's out the door. This is probably his last chance, I think, under Klopp. There is a player there. I think it's more down to getting the player out of the Premier League and getting them moving to a country where he can find what he is. And because I agree with Neil, the jury's out of where he should be. Is he a number 10? Is he a left winger? Is he where does he actually fit in? He doesn't fit into our midfield or our formation at the minute. But I think a bit of maturity, a bit of growing up is needed, and he's probably gone to the right place for me. He gets to experience another culture, another way of playing football, as well as having the quality of games that he would have had playing for us. Downside is that if he was still in the Premier League, he used to, and it's only on my opinion, I think something's gone on with his actual attitude and something like that. And I think this is a way of sending him out of that bubble for me personally. But I hope the lad does well. I think he needs a break. He needs to be playing regularly. I think he's too young to be missing out on that. And I think there's a quality player in there. And I made up that we haven't sold him. I made up it is a loan. So and hopefully if he does do well, there's an opportunity for another year if needed to be. Do you know what I mean? So there's an opportunity. There's light at the end of the tunnel for him. His Liverpool future isn't over, but this is probably his last chance for us, because I do think if it fails at Leipzig, I see us selling him, sadly.
Yeah, no, I completely understand where you're coming from. Okay, that's all the main Liverpool stuff. We're going to speak a little bit about Premier League big deals. We'll have just a little chat on them. Two main ones. We'll just have a little bit of a free-for-all. Jump in if you want. But Tonali to Newcastle, 70 million. Reports from Italy were saying that Tonali didn't even want to leave, got forced out the club. Bit of a mad one if true. I think the you can back me up on this. I think they said he was crying. Not sure how they found that out, but it's a good deal, isn't it, for Newcastle? You know, he's one of the up and coming, you know, probably Italy's most exciting player. So I mean, yeah, what's everyone's thoughts on that? I think it's a good deal for Newcastle. I'll say Kev. It's okay. It's probably just easier than that. We don't do free for alls here. Kev, go on, fly me.
I don't know. He's been hit and miss for me tonight. When I've watched him play, every time I've watched him play, he scores a decent free kick now and again. I've seen that, but I've seen him go missing in games as well. So again, it's great for their fans to get a £70 million player, something that they probably didn't think. Well, they thought they should have been getting last season. Is it this type of player that they should be getting? I don't know. It's the jury's out for me. We'll see how good he is in the Premier League, but it may mean that Bruno Guimaraes gets a bit more of a freer role in that middle of that park, or Joe Linton. So it's exciting to see, but let's see if you can adapt to the fast pace of the Premiership. But for me, 70 million. I think in a few years' time, I think someone said in our chat, 70 mil now, more than likely he'll probably be over 100 million in a few years' time. But I think he's got the potential to grow. Do you know what I mean? So happy days for them if you're a Geordie.
I don't think he's guaranteed to be a success. It is a bit of an adjustment. Yeah. It is a bit of an adjustment. He's a fine player, but I think the same as Kevin. I think I watched the semi-finals, Champions League semi-finals against
Inter Milan, wasn't it?
Yeah, and he was on the outskirts of the game. I've seen him play, and I've seen him play very well. If I was going to spend, if we spent £70 million on a player, I think I'd be a bit if it was Tonali. That's how I feel about it. I'm not saying he's not going to be a success. I think he's a good player, but I don't think if we spent £70 million on a player, I'd want it to be someone else. He
did get, I don't know if anyone watched the France-Italy game. Thuram was running through him like butter, to be fair. But it's Newcastle. They can take these risks at this moment. I do think it's probably to give Bruno Guimaraes a bit more freedom, which I think he wanted. So if it makes him happy and makes him want to stay, then it's probably a good deal for them. But another one, Drew, that's been kicking off is Arsenal, Man City in the race for Declan Rice. Feels like Man City are kind of just saying, well, we don't want you to have Rice, so we'll take him. Maybe he's a Gundogan replacement, Drew. I'm not sure, but seems like a bit of a mad deal for me.
I mean, City can afford it, we'll see about the whole financial fair play thing and all the accusations against them. But I think it's a smart buy for them. Calvin Phillips didn't work out. Arsenal kind of set the groundwork, and they've been playing it slow. And Man City come in with a big bid, and they can get a player. If Rodri's out, or even if they do the double pivot in midfield, I can't see it going horribly wrong. And even if it does, he's young. He's got time to make it into the team. We know he has quality. I think Arsenal are really getting punished for trying to nickel and dime, get it over the line, because it seemed like he was fully down to join the Arsenal project, and maybe like them just towing the line, and then the chance of getting guaranteed trophies at City. I'm certainly not upset because I don't like Arsenal. don't like them being linked with quality players. I'm a little upset that they're potentially getting Timber over the line, but yeah, I think that's a huge miss for them, especially if they're getting rid of Partey and Xhaka. They need someone in that midfield, and unless they can swoop Chelsea to Caicedo, they're really stuck if they lose Partey, and without Xhaka, that's them dropping the ball.
I read that they're going to play Havertz in where Xhaka was playing, left side of midfield. That was what I read today. But
crazy.
He's another one you don't. He's another one that you don't really know what his position is. Havertz, but yeah.
Crazy.
So go on.
To be honest, right? I'll be honest. I've never really seen the height of what he is until this season, and he actually played at our place, and lucky enough, lo and behold, us four were at the West Ham away game. So he's grown on me. I think he's a very good player. My problem with always was, and as West Ham have proven, is that the money would be ridiculous. There's an England tax along with the London tax, and now a Europa League tax as well. So low and old, they're old now for about, how much is it? Over 90 million that they want for him. It's insane, but that's the market when you go in for English quality English players. It's that's why we always look for the alternative abroad. Sadly, you know what I mean. But I don't know. Arsenal, it reminds me of Chelsea back in the day. We put all the groundwork in for players, and then Chelsea come in last minute and taking them off you, and because that's the way they are. Get used to it, Arsenal, because you're now in the big boys league, and it's not going to be as easy as you think as it was last season. Getting Jesus and Zinchenko and thinking, "Oh, Sam, we're all great." It's welcome to playing with the big boys, and I agree with Neil. I don't get that at all. I'm for the money, 75 million. Seriously, it's a joke. You know what I mean? And if it was the player coming from the Bundesliga, then yeah, I could probably get it. But he hasn't really set the light and set Chelsea alight last season. Struggled to. Did he get over 10 goals last season for Chelsea?
I think he was their top goal scorer, but it might have just been 10.
You know what I mean? Don't get me wrong. He scored the win against City in the Champions League, so he's probably got that to live on for a few years. But I don't get it. It's a strange one for me. But
I think sorry, go on, Drew.
Sorry, I was just going to say what Neil said about filling in for the Xhaka position. I don't know if that's a joke or not, because
no, it wasn't. I read it earlier that that's where they expect him to play.
Like, Xhaka was supposed to be more of a physical bruiser. I don't like. Havertz seems very weak. Like when
Xhaka did play in a more advanced role though.
Yeah,
last season, and he looked very good as well.
He was banging in the goals, wasn't he?
He was, yeah. But
you look at the competition though in midfield, or Odegaard. What are they going to do with Emile Smith-Rowe? Havertz. It's like trying to shape him into that midfield role versus what was he playing in the Bundesliga? He was playing as like a number 10, off the striker. Chelsea, similar. Like, you're buying a player and trying to shape him into a position for 75 million. That's I guess that's end of the days for Emile Smith-Rowe. I don't know. It just doesn't seem logical given what they need, especially if, like, you're thinking about Declan Rice and the price. You could have, not gotten Havertz and put more of that towards Declan Rice and got that over the line. But
I mean, it's crazy when you look how much money Chelsea have recouped off that. I think they spent, it come to about 80 million with the add-ons that he hit. But they're going to be getting, 65, 70 million for a player who, put the nail in the coffin to win you the Champions League, who, again, isn't really great. I think that's great business by them. But, it's now going to be probably a battle for them, Chelsea and Arsenal, for Caicedo. Who knows, maybe Arsenal funded Caicedo for them. to Chelsea, but it's a bit of a mad one. But on Declan Rice, if he's the one deciding City, it's money. It has to be. He can't look at what happened with Calvin Phillips last season. I know a different caliber of player, but Calvin Phillips was in the England team throughout the whole World Cup. He was one of the best midfielders for Leeds last season. You know, he was a good player. He's come in, sat on the bench the whole season. He's been called fat by Pep Guardiola. I mean, yes, Bernardo Silva, and Gundogan are leaving, so it's maybe he sees more time there, but it's just a mad one for me. You can go to Arsenal, become a legend, be there for the next 10 years, and potentially get statues built after you, or go and sit on the bench and win trophies, which I guess is always nice, but. Bit of a mad one for me. I don't know what he's really thinking, but money talks.
But where are we with it? Because the last thing I read was that he favoured a move to Arsenal.
Yeah,
and I saw DiMarzio reporting that City had come in and they would pay it off in 2 years rather than 5 years that Arsenal were going to pay.
Yeah, so I think that was really the last thing. I think so. I don't know who it was, but someone come out and said there's like a 65% chance that he joins Manchester City. Bit of a mad number, but that's journalists for you. But it's I mean, it's a big move as well. Arsenal's just staying in London, doesn't have to move house. It's round the corner. Whereas you're up heaving your whole life pretty much to move, 3-4 hours away. It's a bit of a crazy one, and they've been linked with him so much. Surely they've had the advantage over City in negotiations. So maybe that's what Arsenal get for being cheap. They did it with Suarez. They've done it plenty before. So that's what you get for bidding in £2 million increments. So unlucky Arsenal, but. I think we'll probably wrap it up there. Thank you to everybody for joining us today. If you haven't, please do leave a like on the video. Also subscribe. Check out the recent videos we posted. Mickey van der Ven, expert analysis with Michael Statham. Really good one. And all the other ones that we've dropped as well. Got a great podcast coming out tomorrow with the one and only Clive Tildesley. So that will be out probably around midday. Definitely don't want to miss that one. And then, as I said, we've also got a few more expert analysis. We'll be dropping them all for the rest of summer. So, but again, guys, we will be back tomorrow at 7:30 for another live stream. Kev, Neil, Drew, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Rabbi and Charlie, this has been a Transfer Room. Thank you for watching. And